but this thing starts officially at 8:30, okay? Guilty party right there, Sheldon. Why is it, why did you schedule, why did you did you do this really intentionally? All this for free breakfast, I tell you. Yeah, right. I got comps, okay? Let me see. I'll tell you about my chip life, okay? Actually, I started chipping because of a neighbor who started, we met at a trash can, and he had and we just started talking, and he was a gambler, and he said that he wanted to go to Vegas, and he started collecting chips. And I thought, well, I always go to Vegas, and nobody, this is insanity to collect chips. I'm a gambler, you cash them in. But anyway, he got me interested in bringing home chips, and I'll never forget, because he said, all I need is for you to go to all these places, wherever you go, just bring me a chip. So, being a gambler, I used to gamble at the Dunes a lot. I used to gamble at Stardust a lot. Well, I did well at the Dunes, and I took some chips. I did well at the Stardust, and I took some chips. As a gambler, when you're in a hot streak, you don't change things. You don't change your underwear. You don't change the style of your cigarettes, not your drinks or anything. So anyway, I started going to all of these little places I had never seen. I never knew Vegas had more than 5 or 6 casinos, okay? And this is in 1989. And I constantly, wherever I went, I just won, and I couldn't believe my luck. It was an incredible streak, and I really, really felt that it had something to do with collecting chips. Anyway, I managed to hit, I'm going to guess, 40, 50 places. I remember the Cattle Baron very, very well, because I had these $100 Cattle Baron chips in my hands, and this is a little place outside of Henderson. To this day, I know I had 5 or 6 of those, and I thought, no, nobody collects $100 chips, okay? And I remember cashing those in. I remember cashing in up $30, $40, $25 chips, but I did take a good number of $5 chips, a lot of 25-cent chips. I had never played 25-cent craps in my life. I mean, this is for the peasants, okay? But now I'm learning to start playing for 25-cent chips because this guy wanted to collect chips. Anyway, I come home, believe it or not, what is it, a 10-gallon trash bag stuff? I had 2 of those full of chips. This is the honest to God truth. I would say there must have been 60, 70 pounds of chips, 2 bags. Now, I called my neighbor and I said, let's get together. You said you wanted some chips. I've got your chips for you. And I said, if you've got kind of a cart or something, let's meet. And he thought I was asking for the cart because of the trash, okay? Anyway, I drag out these 2 big bags of chips, and he just about has a heart attack. His first words are those really full of chips? And I said, well, yeah, you wanted chips. These are your chips. And he said, I can't pay for those. They're not chips. And I said, no, they are chips, okay? And he said, there's no way I can pay you for all those chips. Just wanted 1 chip from each little joint you went to. So I said, don't worry about it. I'm a gambler, okay? This is the best thing going now, because he's going to take those chips. And I told him, please go through them and sort them out. That's all I asked. Then pick out whichever you want. Because now my bankroll for my next trip, I've got right there in those bags, okay? I really think I'm onto the best gambling scheme of my lifetime, okay? Bring those chips home, and then you bankroll yourself for the next one. That's how it basically all started as a gambler. And to this day, I know a lot of people come into this hobby because of the gambling aspect. My neighbor, it took him about 9 hours. And the kitchen table was just all stacked in orderly fashion with chips from the Dunes and the Sahara, the Riviera, the whole works, okay? And later on, of course, someone said I could take those chips, and for a 25-cent chip, a chip dealer would pay me 50 cents. And that's when I thought, I'm now going to quit my job. Because I'm a gambler, and you know when you're a good gambler, you know the VIG against you is 3-4% at the most. In other words, for every $100 you gamble, you're going to lose $3 in the long run, okay? But this guy's going to pay me, someone's going to pay me for a 25-cent chip, double face. That overcomes the odds. So now I'm going to go gambling for the rest of my life, bring home my winnings, and double them, and that will overcome the VIG. Okay, that was actually a dream of mine, and it came. Well, at that time, my Pat just said, "Slap me across the face." It come down to reality type of thing. But that hoard of chips became my basic inventory. It also led into this fascinating hobby where lots of times it's the characters you meet, like you people, okay? Fascinating. We come from so many different areas and different occupations. It becomes a sickness sometimes. It becomes a passion sometimes. Chip deals, famous chip deals. I can remember with Dick Covington, who's one of our very first chip deals was done on a trash can, right? I can remember chip deals being done out of trunks of cars. And sometimes when you're in the security area of a casino's garage and you're doing something out of a trunk of a car, it does not look right, okay? Harvey Fuller. I think a lot of you I think most of you remember Harvey, but we would always do chip deals from the back of his trunk. And sometimes with Harvey Fuller, when he opened up the trunk, the first thing that would hit you would be the gas fumes, okay? And the second thing that would hit you was Harvey would light up a cigarette. I just, Harvey, I miss Harvey Fuller dearly, but that is another character that I got to meet in this hobby. Dealers, I do remember my first purchase of a chip, and that was from a dealer from a coin show, and thinking just like I would say the majority of you when you started, you're buying a $1 chip, and you pay $3, and you're going, this is nuts. Why am I paying $3 for something that says $1 on it, okay? And from that, of course, it leads to where you then pay $30 and then $300, and then we are now in that era. And it's a fascinating era in a sense where chips from the Phil Jensen collection, a lot of them, when we go through the slides, you'll see where Phil paid face. For some chips that are easily worth 30, 40,000, 55,000, okay? A lot of these chips that you'll see today, you might as well just commit to memory, okay, because you're never going to have them in your hand. Or if you did, please come see me, okay? If you have a lot of them in hand, please come see me, all right? Actually, the seminar, again, doesn't start for another 20 minutes, so if you guys got questions of anything, yes, Doug?
Why is there such a renewed interest in Bill Borland?
I think part of it is a lot of hype. I think... Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. The question is, how smart are you, Doug? I think... I must be the smartest one because I got the microphone, okay? The question is, why is there such a renewed interest in Bill Borland? Well, to answer that, of course, you got to go back to the Bill Borland days. Bill Borland, the Bill Borland I knew, and I only knew him in the last year of his life, but I will say that Bill Borland has to be considered a pioneer in our hobby. Definitely very, very high in consideration. Bill Borland was he was a Canadian. He had worked in the Catskills as a comedian. He knew comedy routines. And of course, this is Las Vegas I think he moves here in the early 60s, okay? And he does comedy routines for, at that time, the lounge shows. Do you remember what those were? They were free, right? But he would work lounge shows, and he eventually became a maitre d' at the Dunes. And this is Jim Serra the star of the Sea Room? No. What was it? Dome of the Sea, right? I keep thinking tuna, Charlie, okay, right. It's Dome of the Sea. Anyway, that was the Dunes, one of the finest restaurants there, okay? And from being a maitre d', you are in contact with a lot. Maitre d's back then had a lot of power, okay? Borland could get you into any show in town back then. And again, this is the Rat Pack days. This is when Sammy Davis would come in and blah, 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 blah. He knew them all. But eventually, he would be phased out, and there came a time in Bill Borland's life where, using all the contacts that he had with all the ownerships and everybody in gaming, he was a collector also of his own materials. He loved anything to do with Las Vegas, so he did have his own collection of stuff. But he decided to go into the marketing of casino memorabilia, okay, which was part of our hobby back then. Chip collecting was not, for him, a real strong marketing area. But what was most important for him at that time, and this is like in the late 70s, he had all the connections to the souvenir shops, which, you know, this town has very few souvenir shops, okay? So having that connection, he had to supply them with materials, which meant he was selling them decks of cards, he was selling them chips that would be encased for keychains. This was the main part of his business, even in the latter part of in the last year of his life. One of the most fascinating things that Bill Borland ever came up with was, and this is before the age of the computers, of course, was the famous, you could go into the Dunes, into the souvenir shop, and you could have a black and white photo of yourself put on this calendar, or this, you're called a Gambler of the Month, or whatever, I am a high roller, and within a 24-hour period, you'd go back and you'd have your picture on this poster. Okay, that's really where he made a lot of money. And so, at the same time, he's married to Star Warwick. Star was very much like her name. I think really an attractive woman. She was, I think she was a showgirl, definitely a showgirl. And that's how Bill Borland met her. But eventually with Bill, he could tell that with that particular market of souvenir trinket type things, okay, there was also becoming an interest in old chips. And this is when he starts to meet Harvey Fuller. This is when he starts to know Phil Jensen. And he sets up a shop where you could go in there, and now actually a retail store, and you could buy any kind of gambler, very much like the Gambler's Bookstore today on Main Street. That was a Bill Borland type of operation. He was so successful in that. Most people sitting here think of Bill Borland as someone who just manufactures chips. That was such a small part of his whole business, okay? The main operation, I know there are records around where he did about $1.5 million in sales in 1 year. And believe me, selling chips at 25 cents a piece is not going to get you $1 million. So you can imagine that it was the souvenirs that he actually did. Anyway, he eventually got to the point where he would phase into one other area, and that would be where he talked to Bud Jones, and he managed to get from Bud Jones the dies, which he did want, the manufacturing equipment, some of it, a lot of old blank chips, tons of blank chips. And the most fascinating part of it is that he is licensed. He becomes licensed in the state of Nevada to be a manufacturer of chips. Okay? A lot of people forget that particular part of Bill Borland whenever they say he did illicit things. Well, he was actually licensed to run a legal operation of manufacturing chips. Of course, the biggest discrepancy or argument that we will always have is whether or not my microphone's going to be cut off. No, it's eventually what happened, and this is the way I see it, okay? So I believe that Bill Borland, when he bought all of Bud Jones' material, Bud Jones, whenever you buy a manufacturer's, you not only get the equipment, but usually you get all the chips that were used by that manufacturer to make that particular mold. And I do have, in my interviews with two ex-workers of Bill Borland, they remember when Bags and bags and bags of chips were brought into Bill Borland's operation from Bud Jones when he bought what was called the Bud Jones mold at the time, which was the Nevada mold and the Nevada dice card mold. At the same time, he got this clunky old hot stamp machine. At the same time, he got to buy all the old dies that Bud Jones used to create, you'll actually see quite a few of them on the screen today, chips for a lot of Nevada gaming operations. The key to what Borland wanted most of all, though, is to manufacture chips for personalized sets. Okay? When he went into the manufacturing business, he had a very, very good operation for manufacturing. If you wanted, I think he was the only one doing it at the time, where you could actually go there, and Mike Heron, he would manufacture his chips, the personalized chips of today. Of course, going back to when he inherited in the transaction of owning all those chips, there were tons of these old chips that Bud Jones had manufactured, boxes of them. Those boxes, Star Warwick, Bill Borland's wife, well, Bill Borland's girlfriend, put away in storage, okay? About 3 years, in the 1989, 1990, something like that, Star Warwick comes down with cancer. And this is about the time when I start to have my first dealings with Bill Borland. And Bill Borland would come out with a chip list of chips you could buy. We all bought from Bill Borland back then. Ralph Pollock, you made a New Brown Derbies, I believe, okay? Some of them which he could sell to you in bulk. But he had a little chip list, and I think you would laugh today to find out that a $5 Bugsy was being offered for $35, okay? A true $5 Bugsy. So Bill was started to get into that area, but he was covering so many areas, he was really stretched out too thin to me. He depended on Star. This is a comedian now, okay? And a first-class comedian. Don't forget, he's also... what am I going to call it? An epicure, okay? He loves cooking, putting on parties. There's a famous photo that I have of him and Bob Mayhew. Bob Mayhew also is a very good cook. And they joined this society of cooks. This is kind of a key thing with Bill Borland, because he often gets accused of actually using this old hot stamp machine at night, okay? Bill Borland, the one that had gotten his hands dirty on stuff like that. That was for Star to do all the dirty work, the organization, the whole thing. When Star she got cancer of the stomach, I think. I remember orders that I would make, and you know, I would order my $5 Bugsy, and, you know, Bill Borland was trying to fill the orders, and, you know, you would get a New Brown Derby, and I'd say, I didn't order this. Please, I want my Bugsy, you know, and finally it got to the point, after 2 or 3 calls with Bill Borland, Star had passed away, the famous call I made, and I said, Mr. Borland, what is wrong with you? Every time I've ordered this chip, I need something else, okay? Oh, God, he just lit into me. I'll never forget. He was screaming. Are there any kids here? He called me, but yeah, they're all kids out here, I think. He was calling me all kinds of names, and he said, you don't care. All you guys care about is your damn chips. You know, my Star's gone. I don't care what you get anymore, you know, because she filled the orders. She was the one doing all that stuff. She was the one I always talked to. Now she's gone. Bill Borland then starts going on to this drinking binge. And those chips that Star had put into storage, for the first time, Bill has no idea where anything is. He starts grabbing those. And I think sometimes intentionally, I think he was so upset at all of people like you who are so passionate about the hobby, you forget about the persons, the characters, the people. And I do believe at that time, that's when Bill Borland started letting you have, if you want chips, you're going to get them. And these are all the chips that were duplicates, the fakes, the imitations, okay? Because around 1991, 92 is when those actually start to come out in volume. There's a couple of collectors here who bought 25-cent castaways that were bright new and shiny, okay? But was he doing it to deceive the public, us, deliberately? Well, if he was, why was he selling a 25-cent castaways for 25 cents? I mean, this guy's not a good crook, okay? Not to me. Anybody who's going to do that under a deceptive means is going to try and make good money off of it, much more than just 25 cents a chip. Anyway, I think what's happened so far is that the people interested in Bill Borland's chips today, it is because of that history, that part of, it's an integral part of this hobby, what Bill Borland did, okay? Boy, this is a long answer, isn't it? I just got Anyway, I know also that prices of chips have affected the new blood coming in, new money coming in. You know, it's how do you get into a hobby where someone says, buy this chip, it's $5,000. I mean, I think it's just, it's impossible to do. It takes years before some of you learned what are good chips, what are great chips, what makes a chip, what's the love of this, okay? But these new people coming in don't have that opportunity. So now it's this particular Bill Borland era chip, okay, that I think is it's affordable. It's affordable, it's fun, it is part of our hobby, it's historical in a sense. Wow, seminar's done, right, folks? I hope you had a good time. Any other questions? Oh boy, this is a tough crowd, tough crowd, tough crowd. Okay, 5 more minutes, yes. Speak up. I'll take those words back. The question is, how's your question? The question, it's not a question. He made a statement, actually. Basically, he said, fractionals are the way to go. Fractionals, again, are chips that under $1, 10 cent, 12.5 cent, 30-cent chips I've had before, okay? The reason, of course, that I said that is because there's a motive for that. It's called money. First of all, and it was part of my collection. When I got into this hobby and very seriously into this hobby, I felt that I should go for chips that really aren't in play any longer. And one of them would have to be by denomination. There's not a casino in Nevada today that's having a 10-cent chip issued, okay? Not for being in play. So I felt automatically that going with fractionals would be the way to go for me, because you would automatically get something that's old. And you're not going to get a lot of inlays, but at least you would know that they were obsolete as soon as you bought them, okay? Any other statements? Questions, I mean. Also, yes, Ralph.
Speaking about fractionals and Borland, King of Clubs, 10 cents.
Wow, yeah.
Why would he sell it for 10 cents? Why would he make it? Why would it be? Is it counterfeit? Is it not counterfeit?
Oh boy, now you're going to get down to specifics, aren't you? The question is the 10-cent King of Clubs, which Bill Borland did have in his possession, and that there was a real there's a real 10-cent King of Clubs that was actually in play at the King of Clubs in Sparks, Nevada, okay? There was also came a time when another 10-cent King of Clubs came out that was it was just in uncirculated condition. It was hot stamped and it was created with a Nevada mold, okay? My contention again goes back to when Bill Borland bought out all the Bud Jones material, that I believe that the 10-cent King of Clubs were bought from Bud Jones, who created them. And the reason why Bud Jones created them is that they could have been on order as a second time around, okay? I don't know the reason why it's a slightly different color, but I think, and again, my theory being that Bill Borland didn't create that, okay? But he did have them stored. Yes?
Going further, we all think that it is not a counterfeit, it's a real chip.
Whether it's a counterfeit or is it a real chip, I really can't answer that. For those of you who are just beginning this hobby, this is unlike any other hobby. We have no records of a lot of items, and we don't know really to this day which items are genuine, which items were ordered by casinos but never used. That happens a lot. The Landmark is probably the best example. They order 50-cent chips. Why do they order 50-cent chips and never use them? Because of one reason. When the Landmark comes up, when any major casino comes up, usually whoever supplies them with the casino equipment usually gives them a deal and says, we will make all the chips for you free. Because they're going to make the money off of the blackjack tables, the crap tables, the bar stools, the slots. They get their chips for free. So casinos then, at that moment, when they make their first chip order every denomination. Okay? So the Landmark is ordering 50-cent chips, never use them, decide to cancel them. Okay? If they... imagine, though, if as a chip dealer you could actually get into that vault and bring out these uncirculated fractionals, right? Well, is that a genuine chip? It is a genuine chip in the sense that the place ordered it, but is it really something in play? No. That's just another facet of our hobby. Yes, in the back. Gene?
Just another word on the ball. First of all, I agree with your assessment. I think the uses that took place with balling are really the second and third and fourth generation of those chips turning over with a lot of people that have nothing to do with balling who now are perpetrating a fraud or might have been unaware of what they were doing. In terms of collectibles, if you want to collect authentic chips, that's a collectible. If you want to collect counterfeit chips, that's another area.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that as long as you know that you have the expertise and
Right.
you hopefully
I'm going to agree with you because, well, first of all, you're one of my top bidders. Everything you say is correct, Gene. Okay. Yes. Okay. You get the chip. Okay. No, you did not. Okay. You are the underbidder. Okay. Let's see here. How do I, for your sake, John, that really wasn't a question. It was a matter of, it's probably very much like that where the collecting of fakes, frauds, counterfeit items, but I think that's in all hobbies, okay? Collection of error chips can be very dangerous, but fun, because I can make an error of a chip a lot of times, okay? It's just, again, I always tell everybody this from the first time you start in this hobby, get into it for the enjoyment of it. The moment you feel you're not having fun with it, you got to start either going into another area or dealing with other people, okay? But that's the key. You have to enjoy this, okay? I enjoy sometimes talking to you people. Yes, seriously, on a funny, comical basis, it's serious, okay? I think we're going to start this thing right now. And usually well, you guys have got my little vocal cords all warmed up, believe me. A sheet I slit. Oh, you guys, that goes, I slit a sheet I slit upon a slitted sheet I sit. I slit a sheet I slit upon a slitted sheet I sit. Okay, now I'm done. Okay, now we'll have all the boys say it. I slit a sheet I slit upon us. Okay, we got to rock and roll here, okay? First of all, I have to introduce Dick Covington, okay? He's right there in the our CCGTCC, which is called pays Dick very well in compliments. It's okay. Better actually, the name of this club should have been the 50-50-50 Club, right? 50-50-50. It would have been easy to remember. Why is that? because the images that I see are age 50 or higher, right? Our waistlines 50 or higher, and our IQs 50 or lower, okay? That's what we should be. I mean, yes.
Where are you going to get volunteers for your next auction?
Oh, you didn't get the payment envelope? Everybody got 1,000. I forgot yours, right? But Dick Covington, he does all of this graphic stuff, okay? I know nothing about how this even appears on this screen. That's the honest to God truth. Through some magic thing, it's called a computer. He does this for me, okay? And I also wanted to say something about the sagebrush. This is how important Dick is to me. There's a bar in Beatty called the Sagebrush, okay? It's a great old bar. A lot of great old people in there. The best thing about this bar is that the bathrooms, okay? And you guys have probably seen something like this. The men's room is not called the men's room. It's called Pointers. The women's room is not called the women's room. It's called Sitters. Pointers and sitters. Got that? Well, anyway, the reason why I say that is because every time I think of Dick, he's running something called PowerPoint. And he's got the pointer. Okay, so anyway, point well taken, huh? All right. Also, one other thing, my shirt. I'm going to talk about my shirt. I don't know if any of you remember this or not, but believe it or not, I'm not lying on this, okay? My lips are moving, but I'm not lying. This shirt is now, this is being taped, isn't it? Mike Pat's going to kill me. This shirt is now 7 years old, okay? I decided to do this ever since we got into taping. This is the only time I wear this crappy thing. Why? Because, someone might actually look at this tape 50 years from now, right? And they're going to say, my God, that shirt never ages. But look at that guy in it. And so next year, same shirt, okay, maybe a little different presentation. Also, we are actually going to start, all right. It says on here, Phil Jensen, a casino historian. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about has to do with Phil. A lot of it doesn't have to have anything to do with Phil, okay? It was my way of getting you to sit down, come in. It's the hook, okay? But anyway, let's start with the first slide. This is Phil Jensen, and I still like this photo. Phil had this photo taken in 1973. What he's holding there, one of the very first articles ever done by the Las Vegas Review-Journal or by a newspaper of a major collector. And Phil Jensen's collection, this article was done in 1973. And in that, this is a proud pose by Phil, but it covers the fact that why would you go into collecting? For all of you who have all this computerized experience, if you could ever get into this type of thing, look this one up and read it. It's very fascinating how one individual starts collecting in the year 1968, way before the club is born, okay? Next, please. This is not Phil Jensen's. Okay, this is an old postcard and a very good postcard. It's of the Meadows. It's one of Las Vegas's, to me, one of the most famous places in Las Vegas, going way before the Dunes and way before the Aladdin. It was built by Tony Cornero, who had the SS Rex, both the ship at sea and both the ship at, I slit a sheet. Okay, anyway. One of the notations here that I thought was fascinating is it says "Dear Dots" or something like that. But there's a little remark made by her that half the places in this town are gambling places. Okay, and this is what, late 30s sometime, 1935. You got good eyes. Next, please. Very rare matchbook. And this is the part that Dick's very good at. You see it says matchbook electronically cut. Okay? He does that, because I didn't do that to the matchbook. I did not cut it in half, okay? But what I think what's fascinating here is that it's Meadows, and I like the fact it's Coconut Grove and Casino, okay? That's kind of interesting to me. Again, though, we're starting at one of the very earliest casinos in Las Vegas, which was the Meadows. I don't have any of the chips. I don't have any chip to show you, okay? Next, please. This is called the Club Atomic in Beatty, Nevada. A couple interesting items. First of all, for you people who are just beginning this hobby, always look at a chip from the outside in. Outside in. What you want to look first is for the mold, okay? And this particular chip, this is a rectangle mold. This was probably manufactured in the 1950s. I've been told to use my pointer. I'm going to be a sitter. All right, okay. Hold on. How do I get the channel?
Doug, is that a rectangle mold? That doesn't look like a rectangle.
It is a rectangle mold, okay? It's just that the graphics on it are fourth or fifth generation, okay? But this is from the Burl Inn in Beatty, Nevada. The Burl Inn was the Atomic Club, and if you go through Beatty today, you'll find out that the Burl Inn is I think it's been leveled. Someone told me it's been bulldozed or something, okay? May I help you, sir? Next up, the reason why I follow up with the birdcage is because now you have also, wow. So now I can do something with my pointer. All right. Off and on. Off. Video says on? Oh, video says off? On. Jeez, tough crowd, okay? Cut. All right. Anyway, birdcage. The reason why I brought this up is because this is, again, is a rectangle mold chip, which is the key to this chip because it helps to date it, of course. It also says Las Vegas. It's one of the most famous places of downtown for one particular reason, which you'll see with the next slide. It's the matchbooks of, it's not because that's why it's famous, but if you see, and now I get to use the pointer. Right in here, Keno. It's kind of ironic that it says Keno because the only reason why the birdcage even closed its doors is because they didn't have enough money in the cage when someone hits the $25,000. And don't forget, back in those days, it was much more frequent not to have $25,000 in the cage, okay? That happened quite a bit. If most owners back then, should someone hit something big, and this is in the 1950s, if you won $10,000, $15,000, all that was in the bank would be $5,000, and you'd have to go to someone like Benny Binion, who was just a couple doors down, and you borrowed the money. And of course, Benny being a famous borrower, one of the biggest pointers in, one of the biggest individuals in Las Vegas. This is one area that people don't know that gave Benny Binion some control in this town, is that he floated the money a lot, okay? But seeing that Keno section on this matchbook makes it really an ironic coincidence, but because that is the reason why they were forced to close. In other words, I think they were forced to close because someone did not come up with the money to pay off the winner, and that's someone I still think is probably Benny Binion. Okay, next. We're going to go really, really far. This is out of Ely, Nevada. It's kind of good that it almost looks like that, okay? This is an Alpine Club. It's a 25-cent chip, and it's a small Greek key manufactured by B.C. Wills. It's a very, very early chip, very, very rare chip. What's hot stamped in the middle, of course, though, is a I always thought it was a flying squirrel, right? Whoever designed something like this, it's not. It's a bearskin rug, of course, okay? Next.
Sure it's not roadkill?
I don't know. Okay, what we have here, beautiful chip. This is a beautiful chip. This is the kind of chip where people go, ooh, ah. That's because they just left the Pointers and Sisters room, okay? But anyway, the New Boulder Club, very fascinating chip. This is what's called, for the beginners here, an arrow die, okay? And again, this is from that mold that you see all around the chip, and that's called an arrow die. One of the most fascinating, two things that are fascinating about an arrow die mold. Wow, I can barely see it. But even, you think so? Nah, we won't do it. The dice, there's a pattern of dice that you'll see on the chip, okay? Like this one here, and this one at 6 o'clock. That one's at 12. Wherever you go on an arrow dice chips, whether it's in this quadrant or this quadrant, all the numbers of the dice always add up to 7, okay? So there was some thought to whoever actually designed this mold. The other thing, and you're not going to see it too clearly, well, you're not going to see it at all, but if you ever look at an arrow die, always look for the ace die, the one spot, because at that one spot, you will see a line that kind of just cuts across. And that's a personal mark of some sort. No one knows to this day why that is. And it only occurs near the one spot. When you go in there into that showroom today, do look for arrow dies, because then you'll see these things for yourself. That's part of the love and the lore of chips to me. And then next, of course, we have that last chip did say Las Vegas, Nevada, but again, you have something called the Boulder Inn. The name itself was used quite a bit, but I wanted people to see this because of a couple things. First of all, it's from Midway, Nevada, and the Midway, it no longer exists. It became absorbed partly by Henderson, partly by Las Vegas, I think, okay? But back then, when they had casinos, a lot of them never even said the word casino. A lot of them still just say like beer, liquor, wine, games. But this place I know did have gaming at one time, okay? From my interviews with old timers in town. Next, please. I have to go back to Phil Jensen on this one, because when Phil was collecting, he would always try his best to collect at the place. That's what's most fascinating about the Phil Jensen collection. He would go there to get the chip. He was working in Reno at the time, or Las Vegas at the time, and he would drive to Ely. He would make that weekend drive to go someplace and get the chip. This chip today, it's very, very difficult to find. Most of them have been drilled. It was also owned by the lieutenant governor at the time, not at the time, Bob Cashel. He became the owner of this place. And of course, it's still the boomtown of today, but this is the first issue of the boomtown. Next, please. This might be kind of hard for you people to see. This is one of Phil Jensen's, it's one of his favorite chips of all time. It's a very simple hot stamp chip. It says Bunny's Bar. Again, you have a rectangle's mold on it, okay? But the reason why Phil Jensen is the historian to me is because he has the kind of mind to remember things. One of the details he remembers about when he went to Bunny's Bar is the fact that they had a sign out up in front in which a little boy bunny is chasing a little girl bunny. Cute, huh? Pointers and sister bunnies. Okay, anyway, the Bunny's Bar today, it still stands, okay? It just called another place. It's now the Poker Palace in North Las Vegas. Okay, next, please. Again, just a couple things here. The LA Highway for people, that would become our strip. Okay, the 91 Club at that time. The reason why they even gave it the name 91 is because it was Highway 91. Okay, so this type of thing too. Again, you have a place that doesn't even say anything about gaming, but it does have gaming. It was licensed to run games. And yet all you see on this matchbook is that come dine and dance. A lot of that is because the owners had come from other areas in America. They were chased. If you went to the dinner last night, you heard Mr. Cohen say, if the illegal joints in America at that time had not been forced to close, we would not be doing this seminar here. I do believe that. But because all these gambling people were forced to close, they have to come into a place that's legal, which is Las Vegas, okay? And they're carrying their old traits with them. You never advertise yourself as a gaming place, okay? That's why you have a matchbook like this. Next. Really difficult to see, so I'll have to read this to you. This says Cards Trail 40. In it, the manufacturer of it, because it's in black, it's very difficult to see, but somewhere in here, the mold is all comprised of small crowns. Now, hold on just a sec, okay? Let me get to my notes.
I just want to turn off the light for about 5 or 10 seconds so we can see it. And just turn it on.
I think they did the on and off thing, right? Right, I can't do it. It's beyond, this modern day technology stuff is way beyond me. I can't run a switch, okay? But this particular chip, when in talking to Phil Jensen, he didn't pick this up at the place. The place had already gone under, and this was a place in Wells at the time, which is kind of neat because saying cards, it's not as you think of it as a game. It's the last name of the owner. It's Auto Cards, okay? And the fact that it says Trail 40 automatically tells you that it's somewhat old because that's what Highway 40 was known as back then, as Trail 40. Today, it's become Interstate 80. Highway 40 used to go through all these towns right to the main streets, killed off most of those places as soon as that interstate came in. Next, please. The Trail 40, again, this is a different place. Sorry, it's the same place, but a different issue. Otto now has sold the place. This is what's called a Christian Jones mold. The Hatton Canes, again, in comparison to Hatton Canes today, this is one of the key features of why experts go for a Christian Jones chip. It has a shiny Hatton cane, which is very visible on this one. Okay, the image of the canes are longer and the hat's thinner. Next, please. I bet you everybody here would want this one. This is another ooh, okay? First of all, because the casinos in that era, to think that they actually did what's called, today it would be called a, what's that word? Limited edition. A commemorative piece. But back then, I think it was much more meaningful because of the bicentennial. This is off the top of my head, what, 7 casinos do bicentennials in Nevada? Two of them in California. California card rooms do a bicentennial. But anyway, this is indicative of a chip that it is a commemorative piece to me and a very, 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 very worthwhile piece to own today. Phil Jensen, when I said, Phil, how'd you get this chip? He said, was driving by and stopped there and picked up my chip, okay, for $5. Today, it might sell for $5,000, okay? And, well, obviously, you know the year. Our hobby's gone a long ways in a lot of respects. Next, please. These are 2 beautiful chips. They're Christian Jones chips again. And the reason why I wanted to pick these is because from the Phil Jensen, he actually picked these pieces up off the tables at Cactus Pete's in Jackpot, Nevada. They're first issue chips, and the Christian Jones again. But the one feature of this chip is the very, very large edge insert, which is it's a signature of a Christian Jones, that large edge insert. It also has what's called a scallop-shaped inlay. And also, a lot of people don't realize that when Phil picks this piece up, the Cactus Pete is no bigger than this room, okay? And possibly had 1 or 2 tables going. So if you've gone to Jackpot today, you know what Cactus Pete's is. It is very, very huge, okay? You also have to remember, Cactus Pete's didn't start there in Jackpot. It starts about 20 miles south of town in a little place called Contact, Nevada. And the reason why they decided to move is that someone tells Cactus Pete's back then, you would do better if you got into the border of Idaho. And so they moved the casino to the border, and they decided to call it Jackpot. And they decided to call all the roads and the streets in town, they give it gaming names. That's why you have Keno Drive, Blackjack Avenue, etc. in the town of Jackpot. Next, please. Phil Jensen, a lot of stories Phil can tell you about the Castaways. It was one of his favorite places on the strip. Today it is the part of the Mirage, okay? I think it's maybe the sports book or something, but that's how small the Castaways would have been in comparison to the Mirage. This one here is definitely a Christian Jones chip, and this one here is a Nevada, it's a Horseheads Right, I'm sorry. This one's called a Horseheads Right mold. I know it's difficult to see, but again, you're talking about very old chips. This one here tends to be canceled. You'll see most of these in canceled condition in which the series of X's or ZAB or it's been overprinted in some fashion to cancel it, okay? One of the most fascinating things, though, that Phil Jensen recalls is that on the week after the Castaways is closed, they invite anybody in Las Vegas to attend the closing ceremonies. And at the closing ceremonies, Phil said it was a room about this size. A lot of people were there, and they were giving out items from the Castaways. You got drawing tickets. And Phil ended up like 25 drawing tickets because there weren't that many in participating. Kind of like this crowd, okay? Because it was held at 8 o'clock in the morning, and no one in the right mind gets up at 8 o'clock in the morning in this town. Anyway, Phil had enough drawing tickets that what he wanted, because you could come up and pick your item, were chips. The Bud Jones metal centers were given away to people by the boxes, okay? Obviously, today, you're not going to see a closing down ceremony like that one, and you're not going to see a giveaway of the last issue of chips. They're much smarter now. They want you to buy the Klondike chips before they're not going to give them away, folks, okay? Next. This is a this is difficult to see, I'm sorry. This is the Chesterfield Club. Phil Jensen was not in the Chesterfield Club because by that time in the late 60s, early 70s, it was already gone, I believe. But these Chesterfield clubs do come from a place in North Las Vegas in which it was moved over to a place called Bill and Bud's Montana Bar. And Phil was at Bill and Bud's Montana Bar, and what he saw there on the crap table was they were using Chesterfield Club chips. Only a couple of them. The 10-cent chip, which is this one, okay? They were using the 10-cent chip as a drink toke. If you gambled enough, they would hand you this little 10-cent chip, and you took it to the bar, and you get yourself a beer. Got it? The most fascinating thing, though, is that the $25 Chesterfield Club chips were being, the 25-cent Chesterfield Club chips were being used on the crap table as $25 chips. Now, Phil Jensen is a crap dealer himself. He waits till a new girl is being broken in on the crap table. He waits till the owner is gone, and he goes to the girl and hands her $1 and says, can I have 4 of those 25 chips there? And she sells him 4 25-cent chips that are supposed to be used for $25. Not only is that, it kind of gives you an idea of how Phil Jensen operated to get chips, but I just wish I had one of those $25 Chesterfield Club chips today. Okay, where they've gone, I have no idea. And Phil doesn't either. Next. This is one of Phil Jensen's, also one of his favorite chips, because at the time he's working at the Overland Hotel in Reno. This makes it around 1971, 68, around that time. He ends up getting this chip because it's nailed not drilled or anything, but actually nailed around its edges, held by nails, but not drilled now, okay? On the cage wall. We're at the Overland, and he works at the Overland at the time. The reason why they used to do that in the old days is because they never knew when a place was going to close down. But the moment those owners found out you were closed down, you were in operation down the street, someone would get their chips and they would actually tack them up on the wall, or they would scotch tape them up on the wall, and they would say, tell all their cage dealers, don't take these chips. Do not cash them in, okay? This one was tacked on the wall. Do not take this chip. And of course, after a period of time when everybody knew in town not to take China mint chips, he gets to buy it. Well, maybe he got it for nothing, okay? A chip like this, $2,000, $3,000 today. A chip like this is just one of those beautiful, beautiful Reno chips to me. Next. This was not in Phil Jensen's collection because he thought it was out of his mind to just buy $25 chips. This comes from another source, but I wanted to show it because of a couple reasons. It's rumors abound in this hobby, and especially concerning chips. Is the Circus still open today? Yes, it is. Has a redemption notice ever gone out on any Circus chips? I have to tell you, folks, I think, and what you should do is we should assign researchers to this. Just go back and find out, was there a redemption notice on any chips? Because if there was, that means they have to destroy. It's my belief today that this particular issue, which is the first issue, has no redemption notice that I know of. And that's a key thing if you're going to start collecting something that dealers are now charging $25,000, $30,000 for, which this chip could approach, okay? Finding out a redemption notice, we could do that as a hobby. I urge someone to start a committee doing this. Put up all the old redemption notices and what dates, okay? Next. Another favorite chip of Phil's, because of the fact that he did know the owner, this was a black club in Reno at the time. And it was owned by an individual named Norval Bailey, who was Pearl Bailey. And a lot of you guys are too young. So Pearl Bailey was a famous singer, put it that way, okay? Anyway, he was the nephew of Pearl Bailey. She would actually make appearances at this place. But it's a great chip today. First time I ever saw these chips was in an old hotel across the street from the El Dorado. This goes back 10, 12 years. And for some reason, this guy had put about 5 or 6 of these $5 Club Harlems on a board, on a slant board, and you would walk by on this window and you'd see them there. And every day I'm into this hotel. I'm not there to check in, but I thought maybe if I do check in, I could get those chips. Now, he knew what the value of those things were. I don't know what happened to him. Never saw him again, but Phil did manage to get one in his collecting days, okay? Next. These are classics. These are double oohs, double ahs, okay? The reason why I brought this up, and I think in previous seminars I've told you this before, these are classic to me because of Phil Jensen's famous story where he decides for the first time in his collecting life to collect $5 chips, okay? You have to remember, back then, he's working as a crap dealer, he's working as not making a ton of money, and every time he does make any money, he's buying chips. So he figured it out real quick. At the time, there's 12 major casinos on the strip, $5 chip from each place, $60. He goes to the dunes. There are 4 different $5 chips that he can now buy. You know what his thoughts are? I don't have enough money. I can't go down the street. I can't buy the sands right now. What am I going to do? I should just pick out one of these. I'll buy all 4. To this day, I believe that easily these are $20,000 chips. Easily. Okay? And if it wasn't for the fact that Phil bought those chips, I still think possibly we would have never known that back then Phil could get him out of the cage. Going back to redemption notice, remember? These two he bought out of the cage. They weren't in play. Next. Two beautiful chips, okay, and from the commercial hotel in Elko, which is still operating today, and of course it has the famous. I'm pointing at the little bear there, okay, the standing upright Kodiak bear or whatever it's called, Snow King, all right, and the reason why he's not a Snow Queen is because he has a pointer. All right, we're gonna. I don't want to. You gotta put somewhere in this sometimes, folks. Great chips, though. Phil Jensen also picks these up alive off the tables. Next. It's too bad you really can't see this one, folks. It's really a killer. Okay. Just close your eyes. Envision this. What this is a $25 Bugsy. Do I hear a bit of $5, $5, yeah, you got $20. This is an original first issue Bugsy $25 chip in red with what, 2 gray, 2 blue possibly. It's not drilled. Phil is the source finder of these chips, Phil Jensen. He found them in the following manner, as he told me last night at the bar. I'm trying to read my notes. A guy that he knows that he works with downtown comes to him and says, my dad owns some sort of construction company, and while they're doing or renovating a cabin up near Mount Charleston, he found some old chips. Well, you want to take a look, Phil? And Phil says, sure. So the guy brings in 4 of these. 4 of these $25 plain mold Bugsy issues. And Phil pays Phil pays $2 a piece. Okay? Now, he trades them for $5 each and thinks he's got a bargain, okay? This particular chip today, I don't know how they come up with price values, but I would guess easily 20,000, 30. Okay, it's definitely a first issue. I'll tell you what, later on, if you want to look at all this stuff here, I'll charge $2 a page. All right, next, please. This one here, Cotton Picking Saloon, yeah, and it's out of Pahrump, Nevada. And if you ever notice about old Pahrump chips, there's something that all have in common. None of them say Pahrump. Okay, BJ's. Doesn't say, it just says BJ's, which is a place back there, okay? Cotton Picking Saloon. My thinking here is that a lot of these are bars, very, very small bars with a game that they're running, okay? And they have decided just to run a game without getting a license. Okay? The BJ's, I know in Pahrump, never ever got a gaming license to run a 21 game, but there were 21 games being played at the place. That's no more different than if I were to open up a bar in California and decide I want to play blackjack in the back, okay? I believe that that's how certain clubs in Pahrump, going back to the 70s, that's how they operated. That Phil Jensen picks up this chip on his own, a $5 chip, and it does have bicentennial colors, so it's fairly close to that era, okay? Next. These are, again, flamingo issues, and I know you can't really see these, but these are all H-mold chips. Just wanted to tell people that that edge insert pattern, classic pattern that you do see on H-mold chips and some other old molds, I call that an edge insert within an edge insert. If I were to describe this piece, I would say it's red within a yellow edge insert, okay? But these are not Phil's chips. He did have both of them, but they were always drilled. These happen not to be drilled. They come from another source. Again, you're talking about very good chips, easily worth face value. Next. Phil loves this chip too. It's a very simple chip. Some of the, it's because of his memories of them, okay? This one's a $1 Crystal Card Club. And again, another chip that has no location on it, which is normal that they could do back in the 60s and 70s. Phil gets this piece from Carl Berge, who opens up the Spark Silver Club, and then he's the famous silver club that you see today, okay? Carl Berge was in a partnership with this place, owned the property that the Crystal Card Club was located at. But Phil said the most fascinating thing about this was that not only were the games being operated, but there was definitely a cat house at the same time, okay? So if you come to the state for sinning, the Crystal Card Club would have been one of those places. Next. Very, 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 very unusual chip here, okay? First of all, this one here is another H mold, or made by H.C. Edwards. It has a series of H's around its inner rim. But this one here is just fascinating, fascinating, because its mold is called, I call it a hearts and dashes. I believe all the books say rectangles and hearts, okay? It doesn't matter. Just whenever you see this mold, just buy it. There aren't enough of them to go around, people, okay? Just buy the mold. Even if it's cigarette burned, you just don't see this mold around anymore. But to see it on a flamingo chip, that's what's equally fascinating to me. Again, I believe it to be possibly a prototype, but again, we have no records. We have no records. So don't ever forget that when casinos ordered chips, a lot of times it was because they got their chips free from the organization that was going to supply them equipment. It's very possible that Flamingo at that time is going to open a whole new room, orders chips like this, never uses them, destroys them, except for whoever decides to save one. There's a lot of different possibilities going on here, okay? Next. Oh, I know you can't see this one. Well, you can. There's a famous place right outside of Beatty, southwest of Beatty. It's the Bottle House. Sometimes there's postcards of it. Rhyolite, yes. Phil gets this chip from the guy who used to live and operate and maintain the Bottle House. It is a house made of bottles, by the way, okay? I always throw mine away, but this guy builds them out of whiskey bottles and everything. Anyway, that's how he got this chip. But the thing is, he had to return the Rhyolite from Vegas 10, 12, 15 times until he could get this individual to sell him this chip for $2 or $3, okay? And Phil was that persistent. If he found out someone had a chip like this, he would drive up there every day. And I think they probably sold him a chip at that time, said, "Kid, get out of my hair, you can have the chip," okay? Next. Well, these are one of my favorites. These were not in Phil Jensen's collections, but they are one of my favorite pairs. I think today, modern day chips should learn a lesson from this, okay? Only because of the corresponding colors. If you notice the 5 yellow with 3 red, and then you have another chip with the red and 3 yellow, it's just neat. It shows that somebody there really did some thinking about just color. How they come up with these designs that they have today, but just doing certain things in a uniform way, to me, I think is fascinating. Both of these chips are worth at least face, okay? Many times face. All right, next, please. Going back to, who said, someone here from Vegas, no, Tahoe, Gary's Casino. Phil says that when he was in the place, he was in it when it was called the South Tahoe Casino, and then he got to know the owner, Gary, who was a biker, and he gets these chips off the table. The fascinating thing today is I don't think you see any Gary's Casino chips with an inlay. I don't think you see it for sale at all. They've just, if you ever see this chip, and it's being offered to you at face in an instant, okay? But the only thing that Phil couldn't answer is why are there 2 different $5 chips in 2 different colors, 2 different edges and patterns? Again, one could possibly be a backup chip in case they get ripped off for some reason, okay? Next. These are Phil Jensen's chips, and he did go to the Flamingo Capri. A lot of times, though, people, I think, even feel that these are first-issue chips, at least one of them being a first-issue chip. Well, Phil Jensen was there on opening day, and he said their chips were the crappiest chips he had ever seen in his life. The reason being is because the first-issue chips, of which he picked up 1, 2, 3 different denoms, I believe, All they said was FC. Okay? Those chips Phil can point to. I don't have them pictured because I'm still looking for them myself, okay? All it said was FC. That was the first issue chips. Again, thinking here is that their regular chips had yet to come in yet. They opened before they got their chips. About 2 or 3 weeks later, Phil goes into the place, and now they have what he feels is a very, very beautiful chips, and that's this series. Now he's proud to own those. But I will tell you to this day, I think the ones that are actually much, much more rare are the ones that just say FC. This one here, a little bit of a bar argument last night about which one is the rarer piece, okay? First of all, both are very rare today. Don't see these, it's not an everyday eBay item, but my vote goes for this piece, okay? Oh yeah, we have Captain Q, yeah. How's your Flamingo Capri collection going? FC? FC, you got it? Okay. Next, please. Gary's Casino. We're going back to this because of one thing, because it's in alphabetical order by slides. But the other thing is that a lot of people, when they collected bicentennials, this is one of those 7 casinos that did bicentennials, but they would never have done a bicentennial if it hadn't been for the fact that across the street from them and down the street from them, Harvey's Casino was coming out with this bicentennial series, and so they thought they would just piggyback on Harvey's Casino's success in selling a chip. That's the only reason why they had that chip made, because they found out some other casino in town was having them done. They decided to do one, okay? To this day, this is a very, very rare chip, okay? Just a very rare. A lot of people would just give their pointers away for this chip. All right. Next, please. Next. Now, you people don't have the, well, some of us have. One person has this chip, okay? This is a bit of a wow, but I'm going to disappoint you in a sense, okay? I know the Dennis who works at TR King owns the plant. TR King is the manufacturer, and he supplied this chip or manufactured this chip in a small crown mold, yellow with 3 red. It's very unusual because obviously one side has an inlay and the other side has a hot stamp. I think it's unusual. Next. No, let me tell you about this chip, okay? This chip was not ordered with this. This chip was ordered because of this, okay? It was ordered for a California card room. Okay? This is a prototype. All this card room owner wanted to know was, can I have, what would my chip look like with this kind of a design? And Dennis would say, well, you could have something with that we call a hot stamp, or you could have something where it has a little picture in it, okay? And it's called an inlay. And the guy says, well, I don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. And to this day, I still believe that they get this inlay, put it into this chip to show this guy what an inlay chip is. Again, the question that statement Gene made about, is this collectible? Yes. Oh, huh? I wouldn't give you a dime for this piece of crap. No. Do I hear 20 cents, 30, 40 cents? No, I think this is an unusual, a very, very unusual chip. Very unusual. Is it an error? No. It's for a different purpose, but it's still a chip. It's round. It's neat looking, okay? I would say a lot of collectors in this room would love to have this in their collection. Next. Oh. Hey, why you get so technical with me? The question is, do I consider that a prototype? I would suppose, being that you're sending it to an owner for him to look at, okay, and you're not going to, it's whether he's going to choose from that, you know. It's like when you go to the cat house, you know, you get your choice, there's a prototypes there, so well, let's go on. All right, Griff's wagon wheel. Here's the background story of how Phil Jensen gets his Griff's wagon wheel, okay? First of all, he sends the owner because he can't make it up there. He lives in Reno at the time. This is in Wells, Nevada. This is like easily 300-mile trip from Reno to Wells to pick up this chip. He decides for the first time in his life, he's going to write them a letter. Can't email, of course, at that time. He's like me. Anyway, he writes to these people, and he sends them $7 cash. And he says, for my $7, can I buy some chips? Can I buy $1 chip and a $5 chip? And you could keep $1 for your time and trouble and postage. They never, ever send them the chips. Now, this has happened to several others out there that I know of, some from the old timers, because we all did this, okay? We sent the people cash, never got a chip, okay? In this case, Phil decides the next weekend to drive out there. And as he's driving out there, he recalls there's a commentator that you might know named Paul Harvey that you can hear on the radio. And when you're out in the middle of the desert, Paul Harvey is just beautiful. I don't like to listen to the guy in the city, but if somebody's in the desert, it sounds like he's got some logic in his head. Anyway, Paul Harvey actually is stating at the time that a casino in Nevada is going to be closing down for cheating. This is the way it is in Nevada. These places rob you. And he's talking about Griff's Wagon Wheel. So Phil is now an hour from Griff's Wagon Wheel. He's hearing Paul Harvey tell the whole nation that Griff's Wagon Wheel has been closed. He goes there, it's running wide open, there's everything going on there, okay? And he's going, what's this thing with Paul Harvey and it's closing? And the owner tells him, you know, we're supposed to close. You know, nothing's illegal till you're caught. If they're not going to send out the authorities to close you down, and they tell you to close down, are you going to close down or you want to make money? I mean, nothing's illegal till you're caught. So anyway, he goes there, and that's why it's the stories associated with chips sometimes that make them much more valuable to me. This chip I will always associate now with Paul Harvey, okay? All right, next, please. These are just an idea of we're getting into variations, we're getting into certain things, and I do feel sorry for Dick because he worked so hard on this one. Up until fairly, well, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, it was never known that there were 2 different types. Actually, they are seen much more dramatically here, the differences of the two, okay? I still believe that, what's the word for this, Dick? The background that, I used to call it a hallucinogenic LSD trip. It's been hologram. Got it. Okay. This one I still feel is one of the earliest. This chip was easily issued in the 1960s or earlier. And I still feel that when you tilt this chip, you will see the famous, all of that. You will see all the background here, including the golden nugget up there and what's called the scroll image that is still, believe it or not, it's still there downtown. That, if you ask Phil Jensen right now, it's hidden behind another board. That whole facade in the corner actually just hides that old image, okay? But this chip, when tilted, all of a sudden all this stuff drops out except for the name. It's fascinating to me, at least, okay? But and to do this in the 50s or 60s, that's kind of neat, okay? It's either that or the guy was on LSD. I don't know. Next. Oh, you can't see this, can you? Happy Buddha to you. Okay. This is from a very, very small club in Reno. And you have to understand, Reno back in the 50s and 60s, the clientele back then, a lot of them, they would actually market to the Asians. They would actually market to blacks. This is one of your Asian clientele type things where all the Asian gamblers would try to go to the Happy Buddha Club. Phil Jensen picked up one of these pieces from Bill Fong, who later owned the New China Club, a much more famous place. Next. Back to the golden nugget. Again, here's 2 chips that are truly, truly variants, okay? The lettering style here is not the same as the lettering style here. There's a slight difference in color, okay? But we didn't know about something like this until fairly recently also. If you look in your price guides, I think only one of these is listed. Okay, now if you've got this chip, you're going to have to start looking for the other one, to me, as a collector, okay? They are truly different. Next, please. Back to the bicentennial days. This piece here, this is the famous piece that Gary's Casino was going to piggyback on for the success of issuing bicentennials. This piece here, to me, is a true prototype. It says Harvey's, and it says Harvey's in each of these quadrants. What you are looking at right now is the only chip that I know of that I would call a tri-colored chip. There is no other chip that is made of 3 equal portions of these colors. They don't do it. This is a true prototype gotten from the source, well, Gaming Control Board, okay? It was sent to Gaming Control Board, I believe, as an image of that might be chosen by Harvey's. Harvey's obviously decided, we don't want this one, we will go with this one, okay? Which is then known as a quarter pie, 4 equal sections, okay? Next. Next. Maybe next again. No. Okay, we'll go right here. Claudine Williams, we'll go here. How about the... That's how I feel right now, okay? We'll go here. See this chip? This is the Holiday from Reno, $25 chip, okay? Holiday in Reno was one of the most famous places at that time because Bill Hara, who owned another small club in that town, would always have lunch at the Holiday because the Holiday had one of the best views of the Truckee River, which is full of diamond rings because of... Oh, you guys are a lot of help. Divorces, right? Okay, that famous thing. But this chip here, this is memorable because it is the very first $25 chip that Phil Jensen decides to buy because he loves the Holiday himself. The Holiday is one of the very few places that had a shield sign. For those who don't know what shills is, it's people who are employed by the house to help you in gambling. Nobody wants to gamble by themselves, so they hire other people to sit next to you, okay? Anyway, the Holiday was the only place that I know of, that Phil Jensen knows of, in which there was a sign that says, "We do not employ shills at our slot machines." I mean, that is clever enough that makes you think, right? Oh, good. The person next to me is not a shill. Okay, it was just unbelievable to me. Next, I'm going to bring this up because Claudine Williams, who did one of her things at a different seminar. At a banquet of ours, this is her property. It's called the Holiday Queen, which is the site of Harrah's today, okay? And that riverboat image was pretty much famous at that time. It was famous to me because when the very first time I came to Las Vegas, I'm not good with names. I don't care. I remember saying to the operator on the phone, connect me with that place that has a riverboat. It's got a riverboat. I don't know. I need to make a reservation there. She says, fine. I get a phone number. The operator comes. I mean, the hotel operator comes on and says, look, I'll book you there. Blah blah blah. Okay. I drive to Vegas. I pull into this place. Go up to the door. Bags unpacked. Bellhop's got him going in there. Okay. And I go, I'm checking in. Well, who are you? Blah 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 blah. You're not booked here. I'm booked here. I'm booked here because I booked a place where it has a steamboat outside and everything, okay? And she goes, well, try the showboat. I booked anyway, that was one of my very first experiences of going off the strip as a gambler. And so the showboat to me is memorable, but it is. I have to thank Claudine because of her little steamboat image there. Next. Isn't this a killer? Wouldn't you just love to have this in your collection? All right, let's go back to Harvey Fuller. Harvey Fuller, when the Holiday Queen, you just saw that picture with the riverboat, when it first opened, in Harvey Fuller's diaries, he writes down, and he wrote it down 4 or 5 times, River Queen opened today. Went to the River Queen. Bought chips. 2 or 3 months later, name changed to Holiday Queen. Got that image now? This chip here is the first issue of River Queen, Holiday Queen? I don't know what else to call it. Claudine Williams will tell you she only remembers Holiday Queen. That is the truth. But in this particular case, as an owner, there's still a time when people are deciding what to call it. Someone must have obviously ordered chips called River Queen, and there was advertising done for the River Queen. But it only goes on for 2 or 3 months, okay, as the River Queen. This particular piece, I should charge you $5 for just looking at this chip, okay? I don't believe any of you have ever seen it. I don't believe any of you have ever seen it. Commit it to memory, because this particular chip was purchased almost as an afterthought, as from a junk box, okay? And so those people who are very knowledgeable, now you are very knowledgeable now, aren't you? When you go out there, are you not going to be looking for River Queens? Yes.
You think that 1905 is that pop problem?
I would, yeah, something like that. It is in the records, okay, with Harvey's diaries and everything. The actual licenses, I think the license only says holiday, though, okay? I'm not sure. All right, next, please. Incline Village, another great chip. A lot of these are drilled. This is Lake Tahoe again, but it's not on the main South Shore or the North Shore. It's on the East Shore, okay? This little place, it's a very, very small place, and it was right across the street from what is known today as the Hyatt Regency, which back in those days was known as the King's Castle. The competitor to the King's Castle at that time was the Incline Village. And again, this is one of those chips that Phil decides to buy. It's like his 10th $25 chip that he decides to buy, okay? Next. Okay, this is called Kit Carson, I think. It's either that or an eye chart test. Yeah, it's a Kit Carson. A lot of people think that of Kit Carson, when you say Kit Carson, the most Nevada chip collectors, they think of Carson City, the famous Kit Carson there, because it does, you have postcard views of it. This is the one from Las Vegas. The neat thing, it's difficult to see, but these are called edge inserts, and if you notice, they're not uniform. They're irregular in shape. They don't even face opposite of each other. That's because they're all hand-placed back then. That's how they made chips, almost individually done, okay? There's no such thing as quality control. Got it? This is somebody who just sticks these little pieces of clay on a daily basis, hour by hour, just putting in little pieces of clay into a bigger piece of clay. Next. Well, again, one of Phil Jensen's favorite places to go to. He worked so hard to get this $2 pan chip. He goes to the Mustang Club in Ely. It's long gone, okay? And he actually goes up there and he has to stand by this rail watching what was called as pan players. There are 25-cent chips from the Mustang Club, and those were used in the game of pan. $2 in a pan game back then is considered to be a high roller game, okay? That's for that condition, or what's called a condition chip. That is the rarer of these two pieces. The most fascinating thing about this one is that it is a Nevada mold, and this is one of those pieces, again, that comes up with the Borland thing, where a lot of those appear in uncirculated condition and are known to this day or called by other people as fakes. Okay, how they come about, again, I don't know. Next. A little old chip like this, $5 Foxy Lady, same mold, Nevada Dice card mold, I think, yeah. This is the first issue of the Fox, yes. Lady Luck, sorry. What's your name again? Anyway, this is the first issue of Lady Luck Casino, and picked up by Phil Jensen, and it's very, very rare today. It is much rarer than most people think. I think a lot of times when people assign prices to chips, they go, it's a hot stamp chip, up, down, okay? In this particular case, it should actually go up. I think it's much more rare than people think. Next. Now we're going to get into where Phil Jensen did criminal acts. This is criminally done. This is just criminal. And Phil Jensen, the only way he can get some chips is that he has to buy them drilled. He buys these things as keychains. He buys them for $3 each from souvenir shops. This is drilled in 3 different places, and it has gigantic holes, okay? One there, one there, one there, just as Dick drove them up in little graphic design. Anyway, what happens in this chip, Phil Jensen decides to fill it in. So he uses something called, where's my notes on this, plastic wood in the 1960s, and then of course he has to dye it, okay? It's a horrible looking chip. He should have left it with the drill holes, but he's doing something criminal, isn't he? No, he's not, because it's his chip. He can do what he wants with it, and it's so badly done, there's no way he could ever pass this off as being repaired, okay? But he did. He sat there repairing chips because he wanted them to be filled, just like we all do. We want a complete chip, okay? Next. Love this chip, love this. This again is an arrow die, and that's the mold again around its edge. Beautiful chip though. I wish they make chips like this today. Just the artwork's fantastic. You have to remember that back then when Phil was going into the Las Vegas Club, these slot machines were one of the first things you saw as you entered the place, okay? That's where you get that image for the Las Vegas Club. Next. Great chips today, only because in this particular series, these are first issue from Dick Graves, Nugget, and Sparks. H molds for both of them again. They're rare because most of them have been drilled. And drilled because the current owner, who is Dick Graves' son-in-law, John Esquaga, had to do something to get rid of his father-in-law's chips, okay? So he's the one who drilled them. That's why most of them you see today are in drilled condition. Phil, of course, happens to get his out of the cage at a time that they're in the transition from the Dick Graves over to the John Esquaga era. Next. The Long Branch Saloon. This is located in North Las Vegas, and one of the few that actually has North Las Vegas. And also it's a dice and cards mold. Often you'll see this being accused of being a Bill Borland fake, another counterfeit. The thing is that this was purchased by Phil, and it was purchased directly by Phil at the place, the Long Branch, okay? Do you want to skip Dick to... I'm doing this as a favor to Dick, and I'm doing it as a favor for myself because I can't speak anymore. All right, we're going to skip right now to something that I think is fascinating as far as learning about chips and how things got done in our hobby. Down here, you have a series of chips called the Royal, okay? Its manufacturer was George Knoll Company of Pasadena, okay? And it's called a zigzag mold. Different denominations. Key to this whole thing is the fact that Phil Jensen used to buy this whole series of chips in boxes from Paulson Manufacturing. Paulson Manufacturing back in the 80s, 90s, used to have their own little store in which chips were always being offered for sale. What happens in this particular case, as Phil said to me, he went into Paulson, they're sitting there by the racks, they're being sold for 10 cents, 15 cents each, and he buys boxes of them. But he finds out that they're really not worth that much because they're not Nevada. What they are is a card room, at least he's being told by the person who sells them the chips, a card room in California, ordered the chips, never took possession. In other words, they didn't bother to pay, okay? So these chips get sent back to Paulson, okay? It has to come at a time when Knoll Company, obviously was the manufacturer, sent them the order. Somehow they didn't want these chips, sent them to Paulson, and then get replaced by a Paulson order. Because how I get these chips, every one of these chips, you see this little thing here, the Royal? Well, the key thing here is Modesto, California. I get boxes of these chips from a collector in Modesto, California, named Will Posthumous. And Will at that time, when he gives me these chips, he does not give me this matchbook. He goes, look this up in the Nevada price guides. Okay? Take them on consignment. I said, I'd love to take them on consignment. No one, very few of us now have the 10-cent chip from the Royal and 25-cent to $5. Okay, so I actually put it in an issue of what is called Chip Chat. Every once in a while it comes out in publication form, okay? Anyway, I put that out there and I sell it as the Royal in Henderson because the price guides already put it down as the Royal in Henderson. Everybody knows it's from the Royal in Henderson. Problem is, we got problems, folks, with this one, okay? I think there's now credible evidence that the Royal, this series of Royal chips in the zigzag mold is not a Nevada chip. It's a California chip, okay? I don't want to leave you on a disappointing note, okay, for those of you who have paid $3 each for these things. And there are no refunds, okay? All right, I am done and through and over. I've got to, wow, I ran 10 minutes over. Thank you.